Mate, you touched on this man before. Yeah, looking forward to hearing your perspective on this guy. Yeah, dear friend, and he's the heart and soul of the club and doing a lot for our cricket right now. You probably know who I'm talking about, Vice President. I think done it all. President for 3 years, started playing 68, 69. Bexley Life member, Bexley Vice President. Thommo.
Paul Thomas. Well, what can you say about Thommo? He, when I first started at the club, he was, I think, the second grade wicketkeeper and captain, and then turned himself into a more than pretty handy off-spin bowler, and still bowling today in the 60s and 70s, and if required, would pull on the crews to play in the 50s. He was a guy that was pretty much the heart, running the club basically back when I first started. He was the club secretary, and we were all young blokes who were at uni, and helping out in the club was probably our lowest priority, and you just knew that everything that was required to get done in the club was being done by Thommo. And eventually, when we sort of started to get a bit more mature and started to help out a bit, it was apparent to us the amount of work the guy did.
Yeah.
I remember famously him very rarely lose his cool, Thommo, but he did crack it one day about, I think the line was, "Do I have to do everything for this effing club?" So of course, us being us, we just teased him forever about that. So he's the man that does everything for the club.
And how many decades ago that was, we're still telling the story.
It's 100% true. It would have been sometime in the 80s, I think, when we were practicing down at Carl Park. And, no one was doing anything. Thommo was turning up with the key and unlocking the gates and bringing the gear, and everything that needed to be done, Thommo would do. And eventually, a lot of other people like Bruce Whitehouse came along and took some of that load off him, and Croomy and a bunch of other people, and I ended up as president for a time. But Thommo was pretty much running the secretarial side of the club, and mate, doing a fantastic job. And as you say, he turns up to our 40s games and our 50s games and our 60s games. He's running the 60s now. Scores. He turns up. He does the tees. It would be so much more difficult for us.
I can't fathom our veterans, Georgia River veterans, without Thommo.
No, it would be pretty different. So he turns up every week and does pretty much everything behind the scenes to make sure we get cricket, to the point where he's ringing around, making sure there's people going to take the covers off. And because I'm close to Bexley, I get Hutcho, I get a few calls in that regard, and always happy to help out. But he's the one thinking about it. I just sort of do what I'm told.
Too true.
Too true. He's the one that's liaising with the other clubs, talking to the umpires, talking to the groundsman down there, making sure our third and fourth grade guys get covers on the night before the games.
Whenever some banging on the table required for some dispute, mate, his passion shows through.
Yeah. Thommo was an interesting umpire back in the day when we had to umpire ourselves too. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do remember him getting into quite the stink with the bloke play rugby for Australia by the name of Brett Papworth one day. Yeah.
Mate, I haven't heard that story before.
It was pretty gnarly cricket in those days, and Thommo was he was always in the middle of it. He played his game hard, played very well, and he's got more than 1,000 wickets for the club. Having taken up spin bowling relatively late in his career.
Yes.
Good catch. He's still a good field, and his batting was pretty solid back in the day too. So you say Bexley, you say Canterbury Bexley, you say Georges River, and the next words that come out of your mouth is Paul Thomas.
Paul Thomas, yep.
You can't really, there's nothing more that needs to be said, but he's always happy to be in the thick of things in an argument with the relevant cricket association officials, be it in the veterans cricket or in the real cricket. But he's just one of the guys, and no one in the comp, I think everyone in the comp respects him for the contribution he's made to cricket over the years, which is pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Thommo, well, we go back. I don't think he played the year 1966, did he?
He started 68. So
yeah, well, I was there 66 because then I went away for a few years. See?
Gotcha.
But so I've known Thommo and played with him since 1972. Whenever I came back.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was the backstop in those days. That's what I used to call him. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I'd bowl the first ball every match, and it would be 10 metres down the leg side and diving along, and he's swearing at me.
Be cursing you.
Yeah, every match I did it. And
Yeah.
next one I was all right, because I had a bit of a round arm.
Right.
Yeah. But he was a backstop who got about 300 catches or whatever back in his day, and then he decided to bowl. And look at him now; he's got 600 or 700 wickets.
I should know this. Yeah, he's 600 or 700. I've forgotten.
It's a very lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, he kicked off as a keeper.
Oh yeah. So he hadn't done that. He might have had 1,000 by now. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And we used to. We've been kept in contact while we're playing cricket all the time.
Yeah.
We used to ring each other up and say, "You're going to play one more," and I'd say, "Oh, pick back's killing me, so my neck's killing me," and this and that. But we always did. So we both had a lot of seasons together. Same thing. He was on the committee a lot of times too.
Yeah.
And he ran the place, and he was captain and for a few years in a row, and played a lot of cricket. And yeah. He always believed he could bat. I don't believe he can. But,
Oh, yeah. Okay, that'll get back.
it's not. Sorry, Paul. Very good club, man.
Yeah.
He'll be around to the day he dies. So.
No, we're so lucky to have him. And president for 3 years as well, and through that was some challenging times in the 90s for those 3 years.
They were. I mean, as I said, the 80s we started getting stronger when Bennelong came along. We got stronger, and then we had no finances and couldn't raise any finance. And then other teams, I think, were starting to maybe pay players and this and that.
Okay.
I don't know when that all happened. But then all these blokes just stepped up to the plate, the Creamies and Whitehouses, to try and keep up with them. Now look at where Burwood have always been for 40 or 50 years the best club and the strongest club.
Yep.
And here we are now. We're
right up there.
Yeah, we're right up there with them. Yeah.
And I think the number of teams we've got now is just amazing.
It's unbelievable. It's like like a company just spread.
That's it. Yeah.
So there's just so much work they must have done to do all that behind the scenes. Yeah.
And what Thommo's done as well in the veterans cricket as well. So that's another part where the club's boom, and it's because of him.
Yeah. Oh, of course it is.
Yeah. Because we started the 40s, then it moved to the 50s, and now we've got the 60s as well. And Thommo's running all that.
Yeah.
It's can't thank him enough.
Yeah, my brother.
Matty, you would have been working side by side with Thommo forever.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell me about Thommo?
Well, Thommo was, when I started as a 15-year-old back in 80-81, he was my first ever captain. He was a second grade captain back then. A lot different from now. He was a wicketkeeper and number 3 batsman.
Number 3? I never really batted up.
Yeah,
I knew as a spinner. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I knew as a keeper.
Yep.
I didn't realise he batted up.
Yep. And in his own words, he's done everything for the club. And he has. You see what he does today. He just thrives on being the manager of the veterans teams, and we play away games at Warringah, and he's still there doing the scorebook. He doesn't have to, but it's just his life.
Yes.
The club is his life.
Yep.
There was. I'm sure you've heard the story about when the infamous day. Pre-season one year when I think we're having pre-season down in the nets at Carl Park at Arncliffe, and Thommo was a bit late getting there, and no one else had a key for the nets, and sort of everyone's just standing around. And Thommo's turned up. He says, "What's going on?" And that's where he says, "Do I have to do everything for this fucking club?" And sort of that's where he's just he's been known as the man that does everything for the club. Where to his credit, he does. Yeah, I remember he's not the first year, but one year one of our teams made the semis, and in semis you play all day, and it's usually up to the home team to provide some lunch or something. Thommo he'd be making the Devon sandwiches for lunch or tea or whatever. That's how far he drills down. He doesn't just and he's not a delegator. He's a hands-on man. He'll do it himself.
That's true. That never occurred to me. Recent times of veterans, he does, as you said, does it all. He comes, he scores. He's pivotal for organising the teams.
Shorty, Thommo with the party pies on, that sort of stuff. He can't sit back and watch. He's got to be.
But he's been the ultimate club man though, especially on the field as well.
Yep.
Like I said, he kicked off as a keeper. Mifty came to the club, sort of, did take his spot as a keeper. Then he just took off spin, and what's he got? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Has 600?
Yeah, he got
wickets
600
now? As an offie.
Yeah, he got 600 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I've got photos of it on my phone. It was down at Bland one day.
Bland, yeah.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't remember Thommo's car from back in the 80s. It was his lime green Celica.
Oh, really?
Oh,
No.
yeah. Anyway, from the day I started, Thommo used to, because I was living at Carringbar. I was in year 10 when I started playing with the club. I was living at Carringbar. Thommo ran what was then the CES, basically Centrelink these days. He was the manager up there of the office at Carringbar. So on Wednesday afternoons, I used to meet him at his office. He'd drive me to training. On weekends, he'd take me to games and that. And that was all in the lime green Celica. So I got to know the lime green Celica pretty
Very
over the
well.
years.
Yeah.
But one day we were playing first game. We must have been playing over at Rothwell Park, and we must have finished a bit early. And so in those days, we used to have a beer at Bexley Oval. Whichever team was, whether it be first or second grade, whoever was playing at Bexley Oval, got beers and sort of we'd meet back there, and in that old tea room there. We used to meet back there for a beer. So we're driving back from Burwood.
Yeah.
We're coming up Bexley Road, and I'm sitting in the back, and Thommo is in. He's driving. This guy Brian Cooper, who's a big man. Coops would have been 6 foot something, and probably 130 kilos or something like that. Real big fat guy, not real mobile. Lovely bloke. Had just come back to Australia about a year earlier after 10 years or 15 years living in the States. I think he was in Boston or something, or New York. But anyway, he's sitting in the front, and we're coming up this road, and this car comes flying up behind us, and we're just approaching the lights, and then sort of further back you could hear a cop car.
All right.
I said, they must be chasing this bloke, and suddenly this car behind us turns off into a car park near, I think it was just behind the pub there or something. And then suddenly the police car takes off after it too. I was, it is a police chase. And suddenly there's gunfire. And fucking hit the... Coops is sitting up, hey, it's just like back in New York City. and Thommo's, doesn't know what to do. He's gunfire like this. Oh, fuck, we actually got caught in the middle of a gunfight coming from cricket. But Thommo, and as I said, but Thommo, even though we were caught in gunfire, he got us to Bexley Oval for drinks because he does everything for the club.
Change your tack, mate. Can I ask you about gentleman who's going to have his 50th season with us this season, Paul Thomas?
Jeez, Thommo. Mate, he was the first guy I met at the club. He used to drive this little green or greeny Celica. I used to live at San Susie. My first game was at Warringah. So captain was Peter Shields, and they'd organised for Thommo to pick me up. Now I lived 2 houses up from the main street on Rocky Point Road. He still didn't turn in to pick me up. He told me to meet him on Rocky Point Road, so I had to walk down and jump in his car. And then on the way home, instead of turning into my street, which had a right-hand lane there to turn into, he dropped me on the other side, and I had to walk across the main road and back up to my house. He hates that story because it makes him a real prick, but that's what he did.
You'd be pleased to know, mate, he's still picking people up. Even for our classics games and so on, he still picks guys up.
Yeah, I'm sure he was making walks to get to the bloody car because he can't be bothered turning off the street. He was a keeper when I joined in A-grade. So my first game was in, and then he started bowling medium pace. You can't call what he bowls spin.
That'll get back.
Yeah, well, you can't. It was the right arm nude ball. It confused people with people looking for spin. But it was just one of the all all-time legends, knew everyone on every single Shires team and had his grudges and everything else. I remember a game I opened up the batting against Wentworthville.
Right.
And he had these issues with a couple of guys there, Black and someone else. Anyway, he was umpiring, I was opening the batting and facing. Dickie Neve was opening up at the other end with me. And Thommo kept calling no balls.
Right.
Anyway, this guy kept on getting faster and shorter. And these things are whizzing around my head. Thommo kept calling wides and no balls. Then I walk up to Thommo and go, mate, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm not sure they really are. I just want to really piss him off. I said, but you're not the one fucking batting down there. Doing all these balls getting faster and shorter. He's laughing his head off. Dick Neve is just sitting in the bat. He's not running for a thing. I nearly bloody killed him after that. He's a idiot. But it just the cricket nuffed him. Like, he was on the committee when I joined. I think he was secretary there for a long while. I think he was president after me. Sure.
No, he was before you, actually. Yeah, he was president 3 years from 93, 94 to 95, 96.
That's it, yeah. So he was, I took over when he stood down where I hit him at his place. So he already was a legend of the club by the time I started.
Yes,
and then,
yes.
And again, another guy who didn't take too well to being asked to have a break when he was bowling. So he had to work out roughly when to bowl him, because after that he got the shits every time he said, we'll try something different. He just wanted to bowl and bowl and bowl and bowl and bowl. And the problem was he used to do it quite successfully and take wickets and keep the runs down. But he was always good to watch. Always good to watch when he was batting to see whether he'd actually score some runs or not. But his move from keeping to bowling certainly prolonged his longevity. He spent more time on the ground.
He's hit 600 wickets as well, so he's powering on.
I know, but he spent more time on the ground as a keeper than he did on his feet. So
Thank you.
Last too long after that. He, Bruce, and Kevin probably are the club in many respects. So
couldn't agree more.
And just one all. I'm nice guys. I've probably had more laughs with Thommo. His sense of humour is probably very similar to mine in many respects. He's always good to G up and get on the hook for a good story or a good gag, whatever it may be. But, I played a lot of cricket with Thommo. When I was captain, he was basically in all my sides. So just a real legend.
Yeah, he is indeed.
Mate, tell me, there's a guy to your right, and it's good to embarrass. I'm glad he's here because it's very good to embarrass him. He's
An arsehole.
Mate, he's in my mind the heart and soul of this club. So he's celebrated 50 seasons, president for 3 years, from 93, 94 to 95, 96. He's oh really? Is it because you kicked off in 1968?
Yeah, no, late 29.
All right, mate, stand corrected. My apologies. All right.
Saturday 28, 29.
All right. And this guy, obviously, he's a Bexley Life member. He's a Bexley Vice President. He's, I won't go through it, but he's very much done it all. As you said, he's been the heart and soul of veterans as well.
I remember when I first came, I thought, who the fuck is this boy? He's telling everyone where to go and do this and do that, and they were doing it. It's pretty important, this guy. So he was playing first grade as the first grade keeper.
That's right.
In 1986-87. What can I say about him? Without embarrassing him sitting next to me.
I think embarrassing was good.
I'm going to embarrass the fuck out of him. I don't know about the hard times in the 70s. I've looked through the annual reports and we certainly had some hard times on field in the 70s. Something that would be fair to say. And he's seen the really tough days, and he's seen the better days as we are in now, where we're in the club championship. We're in the top 4. One day we'll be good. But he's been there through the. People will go, when it's tough, oh fuck this, I'm going to go somewhere else.
I'm not going to go and play with Burwood like some other guys did in that club, because things are a little bit tough. But he stuck it out, not for himself, but for the love of the club. You know, what more can he say? As a player, as his keeper when I started, I believe he opened the batting going back as far as score 60 something.
Yeah. So open the bowling as well, Thommo?
He should one day. I think high score is 60 something, isn't it?
69.
Yeah.
Never wanted
Appropriate. Okay, right. And as a player, I got the chance to play with Thommo in some second grade cricket and a couple of first grade games I played. Not many, but quite a bit of second grade cricket with Thommo. And one of the things is, I came to the club as a batsman who kept a little bit. And then I remember going up to second grade, and then Thommo was bowling the left. We said, "You should bowl, Thommo. Thommo should bowl in the game." So who's going to keep? So we'd swap it too. And Thommo can bowl 20 overs straight from one end, and I'd keep.
Yeah.
We'd swap, Kevin say, "Well, it's time for you to bowl, Thommo. Bruce, put the pads on."
Yeah.
Because I was keeping indoor cricket then, so.
Yes, mate. We played many games together.
Yeah,
indoor.
so it was a pleasure. Many stumpings, plenty of chatter. Thommo the Tongan, it's one of my favourites.
Thommo the what, sorry?
Tongan.
Thommo the Tongan.
I couldn't work out why you were talking about Tom.
Bro, you're dark, bro. It's just when you got people like this that give so much of their life, and you said 50 years next year.
Yep.
So Thommo's been with the club since he was about
8 years old.
okay, and now he's to give your life to a club on field, particularly off field, because yes, he did do everything.
Kev, this gentleman celebrating 50 years with the club. Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, well, he just won't go away, will he? I mean, you'd think you'd get the hint. No one likes him. He does bugger all around the club. And after 50 years, he's finally going to go. I mean, we are really going to hold a party for that last game. And isn't he going to soak it up? He's just going to go, oh, we'll get an escort. We probably want to get some soldiers or something like that with their
marching band or something.
Yeah, marching band, and it'll just be the great song. And who I feel sorry for is poor Lee. I mean, Lee loves him going off to cricket all weekend. She doesn't have to worry about him, doesn't have to put up with him. And now what's he going to do? He's going to be annoying her at home. So
that's a good point. We should think about that.
Yes, he should think about Lee, and why not come back for a 51st year? I mean, 50 is a shit number. Go 51, go 52. There's nothing wrong with him.
Rumour has it that he has done a bit for the club off the field.
What, so you want me to be serious about it, do you?
Oh, well, any passing thoughts?
Well, Thommo's made a lot of friends with cricket, through cricket. I can honestly say that. None of them are opposition club mates.
Right.
No one from the opposition likes him, and the feeling's mutual. He hates them. He loves standing in the middle of Akron Oval, telling the whole suburb of St Ives what he thinks about people from Linfield. But in saying that, he did play for Linfield. And then his other favourite club, Warringah, another club he's played for. There's probably other clubs that he's played for. He's probably played a game for Burwood and won't be game enough to tell anyone either. But
Not the dreaded Burwood, God.
Yeah. But he has done a bit for the club, and he really is the heart and soul of the club. And not just because he's been around for 50 years. There's probably people that have been around for 50 years that we've worked with, and we wish they've contributed nothing. He did work in the public service, so he know those sorts of people, and I don't think Thommo was one of those. Even though he did, instead of working for the government, he was tapping the keg down at the businessman's club because the staff didn't know how to do it as well as him. But that's neither here nor there. I'm sure that his management, they knew all about that at the time. But I've said before about having great blokes to play with, and you can't split some of these people that I'm talking about as to who you enjoy the most playing cricket with. So it's all a tie, and Thommo is probably just in front of the rest. He is genuinely amusing. He does take himself very seriously, and it's just a shame that he wicket kept for all those years instead of just bowling the off spin. His wicket taking once he got the off spin going was phenomenal.
Mate, you would have had 1,000 wickets easily
He
by
may
now.
have had 1,000 wickets, that's right. Highest score of 69. I don't know what the relevance is on that, but he's very proud of that. Having seen him bat for the 35 years that I've known him, it's been that long. Boy, I don't know how he scored 69. Really. My son's favourite story of him is we were playing 50s and blokes hit the ball down straight back over the bowler's head, and sort of Thommo's wandered around from mid-off, stuck one hand up, taken it, didn't look surprised at all. This is what I do. That's how good I am. And yes, he looked good. Loves the microphone. So when he does eventually retire, and we won't be giving him the microphone because his last game could be at Mandalong. That'd be ironic, wouldn't it? With his mate Sterling, and we might still be up there the next day if he gets the microphone and has a chat. But no, a truly great man, and the club wouldn't be in the position it is now if it wasn't for someone like Thommo. And the Clubman of the Year award is named after him. There couldn't be anyone more suited to it with the effort that they put into to this club from the 60s.
Yep.
So the young blokes born this century, and they laugh when I say something about last century. Well, when you talk about the 60s,
Yeah.
that's when their grandparents were probably born. So Thommo could have gone out with your grandmother, so I'd be worried about that.
I'm going to put you on the spot now, mate. You are coming up to 50 years with our great club. I don't know if that's ever happened across Shires, at least, you know of.
Look,
Mate, you'd be up there.
It could have.
Yeah.
Because some of my contacts across the Shires have said, I know someone who's been around longer than you, but it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so long as I enjoy being involved, nothing else matters.
Mate, to say you've been involved, that's an understatement. Can I throw it right back? 68, 69 when you kicked off.
Yeah.
Who were your key players? Who were your key inspirations? Who did you draw upon back in those days?
Okay. As a fresh young faced guy, I would say the guy that really inspired me at the beginning was a guy named Ken Grant.
Okay,
Ken
yes.
Grant was the second grade captain.
Seen his name a lot in the annual
Yeah.
reports.
Ken Grant, although I would never be able to call him Ken in those days, it was always Mister.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, if you were a youngster, you had to call the captain Mister.
Right.
Anyway, Ken was a very organised, professional guy. He was a bank manager with the Commonwealth Bank. He lived up at Arncliffe, and his wife used to come to the games. And Ken, I never forget my first ever game at Pennant Hills Oval. And I bowled because I'd come across from St George as a bowler.
Okay.
And Ken, I bowled, I think, 6 overs for not many runs. But we were struggling with the bat. I went in about number 8, number 9. I remember I scored 34 at Pennant Hills Oval.
Right. Is that the same Penno that we know?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And Ken stood at the players' gate and shook my hand and patted me as I come off.
Okay.
And he said something like, "Well done, Paul," like that. And I thought, well, that's terrific, because when I first started playing, I was always told, at a game of cricket, if you got some enjoyment out of it, that was it. That was enough. If you got some enjoyment out of it, whether you got a duck or whatever, if you came and you can think back on that game that you got some enjoyment, whether it's to get a pat on the back from the skipper or whether it's to meet another guy from another club, and you came away with a smile on your face. You might have been downhearted on getting out, but if you got some enjoyment out of it, and I think Ken taught me how to enjoy cricket.
Okay.
And I'll be indebted to him.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
He did come along to the 75 years anniversary at Bexley Oval, and 15 years ago, and I do believe he's passed away since. But he was one of the special people I went up and pressed flesh with on that day.
Yes, okay.
I always remember Mr. Grant.
Mr. Grant, okay.
Yeah.
And who else? You had a couple of other influential guys as well.
Other guys might have been guys like Peter Westwood,
Yes.
Bruce Carrington, I always thought, because he'd been playing a couple of years before me. But like throughout the years, other guys, I'd have to say Trevor Davies was an inspiration to me.
Yes. Yes.
Always valued him because he reached some higher grades in grade cricket than what I had, and I always thought that I learned a fair bit of.
Yes. Yes.
And like even Kevin. Kevin brought some fresh ideas to captaincy as far as I was concerned.
Yep.
I'd sort of, when I was a captain, I'd learnt from some of the older guys, and Kevin to me was one of the new breed. He might be a dozen years younger than me, but he brought some good fresh ideas.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And also I'd put in Neville Fernando, the
Mifty.
keeper, Mifty. He was behind the stumps to a lot of my overs.
Yes.
And
Okay.
always encouraging. Mifty would always give little hints here and there, and for some reason he called me Thompson. I don't know whether he knew whether it was Paul Thomas or Thompson, and he's called Thompson to this day. But,
Okay.
I take a lot of pride in knowing that he called me Thompson, and it's a pleasure knowing a guy like him.
Yep.
So look, there's been plenty over the years, but
Yeah.
I'd say those.
Yeah. Mate, and tell me, what's your take on those, say, 4 or so years where we transitioned from the beloved Bexley to, and forgive me if I get this wrong, was Canterbury Bexley and then to Bexley Canterbury or vice versa, and then we became what we know today, Georges River. Tell me about that period.
I would say they were the exciting years in my time with the club.
Yep.
They were.
Yeah. Yep.
And I could see that we were turning the corner.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden the other clubs were taking notice of us.
Okay. Why was that? Why do you think?
Well, we were harder to beat. We were hard to beat.
Yeah.
We were always the easy beats, and we were cellar dwellers for years.
Okay.
And then we started to turn the tables, and then all these additional facilities evolved. And
Yes.
we weren't playing our lower grades on sort of goat traps down at
Brighton?
Brighton.
Yeah, I
Brighton
remember.
Public School.
Brighton wasn't the best of
Yeah,
facilities.
I never played a game there.
Okay.
But I was a secretary when we were down there at one stage. And I'll tell you a funny thing about Brighton was that their groundsman there actually lived in the dressing sheds. And
I heard that.
His name was Fred. And Fred was, to be kind, he was an alcoholic, but not a really bad alcoholic. But
Yeah.
he used to go to the Fishers Club down at Rockdale. And I was never there, but I heard stories that he'd come back late home from the club around about 4 or 5 o'clock, and he'd sort of open up the doors to his ute that he had. I think it was a council vehicle, and he'd sort of get halfway out the door and he'd just slumber there, and he'd sort of be half out to it with his door still half open. Mind you, these are the days before do you want
RBT and stuff. Yep.
But Brighton, those grounds like that, and we spent time at Lidcombe's. Just trying to think of it. It was a synthetic ground over where the Lidcombe State Hospital is for the lower grades, and also down at Harold Fraser.
Okay.
Harold Fraser down at Cars Park.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was just a new era, a growth era.
Yes.
And it just evolved from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are what we are today. I would say that was a catalyst.
Yep.
Sent it all.
Yep. Mate, so then in your later time then, you are, this is not a question, I'll make this as a clear statement, that you are absolutely instrumental in building veterans cricket, not only for our club, but I think you've had a monumental impact across all of Sydney. You kicked off our first ever Georges River team in the 40s, that transitioned into a team in the 50s and then also in the 40s. You've been instrumental with a bunch of guys to get, so 40s is Masters, 50s is Classics. You've been instrumental in getting the 60s side and that competition up and running. 2 seasons now, it's going to get even bigger next year, which is the Vintage. Tell us about the first Georges River veteran side back in the 40s competition, Masters.
Okay, I think I can go back, I think it'd be 7 seasons ago.
Okay.
Because the first season we only had the 40s.
Yeah.
I believe our first game was here at Bexley Oval, and I've got an idea it was against, could have been Northwest Sydney, I think.
Oh, okay, so they're not around anymore, not in the competition?
They're in Shires still, but not in Masters.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I'd heard about, because we didn't have a lot of guys actually come from within Georges River into the Masters first side, and I'd been introduced to a fella that had some insight into some ex-grade guys, and John Messer and I sort of put our numbers together, and so we crunched the numbers.
Yeah.
And basically we might have ended up with a half Georges River, and a lot of the other guys had been involved with Randwick and Sutherland.
Yeah, okay.
And so that was the time when I first met guys like Darren Smith.
Yep.
And Fabian Heaton.
Fabs, yes.
And there was a guy called Mark Hall who was a quick bowler, and he was excellent.
Right.
And Mark and Darren were a opening bowling attack to die for.
Okay.
So you had an ex-first grade opening bowler and ex-second grade opening bowler.
So Darren opened back then?
Yes.
Okay.
And you had a keeper of Fabian's ability to boot.
And just on a bit of a tangent with the over 50s, how that's grown in the Australian representatives, both Darren and Fabian. Great credit for our club.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so, whilst we were a bit of a bits and pieces team, we had some real star players.
Yeah. And
it really made the competition take note. And as it turned out, we were runners up in the first season in 40s.
Right.
It gave us a lot of encouragement to go on, and then the opportunities came up for a 50s side the following season. And that has been the strongest side, I believe, that I've been involved with over all my years with the club.
Yes.
The 50s classic side has been so united on and off the field. It's an absolute pleasure to be involved with as a manager, and if I could say that my baby for the club was a team, it'd be the 50s side.
Yes, yes. Yep,
whilst I played the rare game there, and I'm heavily involved in the 60s, it's the 50s classic sides that's true to my heart, because I've played cricket with a lot of these guys since 2014-15, like Darren and Fabian. And I said, and to see guys like yourself, Jeremy, and other guys come back to the club like Peter and Marty and Lindsay Labar.
Labar,
and
yep.
I always said to Kevin when we first kicked this off, I said, I don't want to be in a position where we knock back any guy that had played for Bexley, Canterbury Bexley or Georges River. And to this day, I've always stuck to that,
Yes,
to get those guys into the squads.
Yeah, yeah. I think on a personal level,
Yeah.
my Bexley cap has been something that I have absolutely treasured and always will, mate. So for you to welcome me back to play in the Classics, mate, I cannot thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure and honour to play with you guys.
Yeah. Well, in the Classics, so I was looking at how we finished each of those 6 seasons we played in the Classics, and so we have finished in the top 4 in every season. We've come first twice.
Yep.
We've come second twice.
Yep.
We've come third once and fourth once.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good going. And it's a strong competition, albeit that now guys are cracking their neck to play in this competition because of the fruits that are down the track, like
That's
the
right.
World Cup.
That's right, yeah. Both in the 50s and the 60s.
Yes.
National tours for the 70s, so it's fantastic.
That's right.
And that's a lot of that's you're doing, mate. As not only for Georges River, but for Port Jackson, which is the Sydney representative body. You were instrumental in that in the early days. So what you've done has been tremendous, not only for our club but also for our region.
Yeah. Well, just like when I was playing Shires cricket, with the veteran cricket, I always thought if I can be involved with getting guys that are keen to play, get them a game of cricket.
Yep.
And enjoy it on and off the field. And again, if I can use my motto, is that as long as you get some enjoyment out of it, whether you take a fifer or you get a duck, and I'd say 99% of the time, I see people walk away from the ovals taking some enjoyment away from it. Yeah.
Thommo, thank you so much, mate. In my mind, you're an absolute legend, mate. It's a privilege and an honour, mate. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.